Hello, students. This is Mr. Werman here. Um, I'm going to go over 4.4 with you all. So you should have, at this point, already completed launch problems 1 through 2 here. So you should have had a few minutes to do that. If you were not given a few minutes, you'll want to pause it and do that first. Otherwise, we'll start going them over here. So today, our learning target is that you'll be able to evaluate numerical expressions written and in exponent form. Okay, so we're really looking at exponents and expressions with exponents. So for these, we're finding the area of these three squares. We see there are 2 units, 3 units, and 4 units. We know if they're a square, all 4 sides are equal. So if we're looking for the area of these, hopefully we could have figured this out already. But our first one, our area, will represent a large A for area. Area equals our 2 sides multiplied together, 2 times 2. Remember, we're using the dot to use represent multiplication since we're getting away from using x because that's going to be a variable in upcoming lessons. So 2 times 2 is the area of that. And we multiply those together. 2 times 2, of course, is 4. So we'll say our area is 4. And we should say 4 what? Units times units. So we're going to say 4 units squared. That's units times units. Okay. So our first one, as we see, we get 4 units squared. All the rest follow the same suit. We're saying for the second one, area again, big A, 3 times 3, or in other words, 3 squared. So our area is 9 units squared. Okay. And our last one is, again, same thing, 4 times 4, or in other words, 4 squared. So we get the area of 4 times 4 being 16, 16 units squared. Okay. So those are the 3 areas for that. Okay. So another way to write that, it says, how can you use exponents to represent the area of each square? So really, as we showed there, we're saying the area of that first one, again, is 2 squared. The area of the second one is 3 squared. And the area of the third one, we could say, is 4 squared. Okay. All right. So we're seeing representing it in different ways. All right. Great. Lastly, it says when you square a whole number, the product is called a perfect square. So for example, 6 squared is 36. So 36 is a perfect square. So it's good to kind of memorize those perfect squares of all those numbers, starting with up to 10 and then at least up to about 13 or 14 or 15 would be helpful later on as well. But so 6 squared is 36. We see there. All right, now it says we can find the volume of a cube by raising its edge to the third power. So this is its edge. So instead of looking at it as just 2 squared like that, if we're looking at a cube, we know it's going to be 2 to the third power, right? And 3 to the third power, and 4 to the third power. In other words, 2 cubed, 3 cubed, and 4 cubed. Okay. All right. So if we were to multiply each of those out really quickly, 2 times 2 times 2, 2 to the third power, you know that one is 8. So that's going to be 8 units cubed. And this one, 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. So it's 27 units cubed. And our last one, 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. 64 units cubed. Okay. All right. So let's look at a couple more here. All right, for our guided notes. All right. So looking at these here, we're just evaluating expressions. So when you see the word evaluate, we should remember that really means like solve our expression. So we're evaluating these expressions here. So our first one, we have 3 squared. So of course we know that to mean 3 times 3. And again, use that dot. Don't use the x to represent multiplication. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay. They didn't tell anything about a units. It wasn't a word problem. So we can just have 9 as a solution. We don't have to write units to the second power. Okay. Our next one, 5 to the fourth power. All right. So as we know, that means, follow along here, 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay. So you should all write that out. That is 5 to the fourth power as we read it. And again, we can kind of go through and multiply it. So we got 5 times 5 is, as we see, 25. I'll just rewrite it. Okay. And then we have 25 times 5 is 125. It's still times 5. Notice how we just write each one so we don't lose our place and don't make mistakes. And then 125 times 5, our last one, is 625. Okay. So our solution there, as we see, is 625. Okay. So similar to what we did, squares, we're going to the fourth power. And now kind of the next challenge thing is looking at fractions. Okay, but the same rules will apply for these. All right, so 1/3 to the third power, as we can imagine, if we're saying 1/3 to the third power, we're really saying 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3. Okay. So just remember how we multiply our fractions. We just multiply straight across, as we say. So we multiply our numerators together and then our denominators together. So I'll do just like we did the last one, one piece at a time. 1/3 times 1/3 is 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. So 1/9. And we still have our 1/3 there. And then lastly, our 1/3 times 1/9 is going to be equal to 3 times 9 is 27. 1 times 1 is 1, so 1/27. Okay. There's our solution, 1/27. Okay, great. And then we have a quick think, pair, share here. So take a second to do this. You're going to turn to the person next to you and think about this on your own first, and then give you about 30 seconds to do that, and then share with your partner. So thinking on your own and then sharing with your partner, which expressions are equivalent to 64? So we have 4 to the third power, 4 times 4 times 4, and 4 to the fourth power divided by 4. All right, so take about 20 seconds or so to try to figure those out, which of those are equal to 64. All right, so if you need to pause it to give people time to talk, that's okay. But if we're going to continue here, let's see here. So if we have 4 to the third power, that really means 4 times 4 times 4, right? So we see 4 times 4 times 4, 4 times 4 times 4. We see these are both the same expression. And if you multiply them out, 16 times 4 equals 64. 4 times 4, 16 times 4, again, 64. So you see those are both the same. And this one, we have something a little different here. So we already know 4 to the third is 64. So we're really saying 4 times 4 times 4. Space there. 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So again, 16 times 4 times 4. 64. 64 times 4. Ooh, it's on the spot. That should be 256. Okay, you can multiply it out longhand. I'm not going to do that right here. So we're at 256. And then all that is still divided by 4. I should have wrote that out. So now if we have 256 divided by 4, if you do that out, you'd see the answer is also 64. So yes, they are all equivalent to 64. So hopefully we notice there, 4 to the fourth divided by 4. kind of like these really become just 4 to the third. Okay, and that'll be a property we get into later, but a little preview there for that. Okay, if you need to do it by hand, you don't need to know that because you could always do it just by hand here. Okay, all right. Lastly, at the end of our guided notes, we have a couple more things here before you guys get started on your work. So as a reminder, we have a couple vocab here, right? Our base, that's our number here. The exponent, that's the power it is raised to. And as we show here, the exponent being 4, the exponent being 3, the base being 4, 4 to the third, same thing as 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, great. If we were to, as this says, evaluate, we're solving it, they show an example here, 2 to the 5th, 2 times 2 times 2, 5 times. Just multiply out each one, and you'll eventually get there, 232 in that case. Okay, and they show us one other quick example here that's worth noting. Order of operations, which is where we're moving towards, okay? Moving this in with the rest of our order of operations, right? Our GEMS or PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? The order that you go in. So here we see the order of operations. We have 4 times 2 to the second power minus 2 to the third power. So if you remember, we do parentheses always first. We see inside the parentheses, right, with our please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we do parentheses first. We see inside the parentheses, there's just a number. So there's no operations to do inside. So next we would go to exponents, the E, right? Or if we say grouping for G, our exponents we see is 2 to the second power and 2 to the third power. So we'd figure those both out. You can multiply them out. 2 times 2, 4. 2 times 3, 8. Now our next step in order of operations, since we did exponents, check, is to multiply and divide left to right. So now multiply and divide, we see there is some multiplication right here. So we'll do that. 4 times 4 is 16. So we do our multiplication, carry down 16, carry down our 8. And lastly, we're doing additions and subtraction left to right. So 16 minus 8 is 8. All right. So this is what we're getting up to. We're going to get a lot more practice on that tomorrow. But today you're going to work on that assignment that's posted for 4.4. So you should work on that in Cami. All right. And then let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.